What would you do if stopping to help someone on a dark highway meant your entire life would be turned upside down? What if the person you saved turned out to be someone powerful, and the people who tried to kill him knew your name, your face, and where you lived? This is what happened when Carmen Rodriguez made a choice most people wouldn't. Carmen Rodriguez was 20 minutes from home when she saw the shape on the side of the road. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday in March. She just finished a double shift at St. Mary's Hospital. 16 hours. 16 hours of bedpans and medication rounds and holding the hands of dying patients while their families cried in waiting rooms. She was a CNA, certified nursing assistant, the people who did all the hardest work for half the pay. But Carmen didn't complain. The job paid rent, kept food on the table for her and her mother. That was enough. Highway 94 stretched out empty in front of her headlights. Wisconsin in March was cold and dark. No other cars. Just Carmen and her 15-year-old Honda Civic that made strange noises every time she went over 45 miles per hour. Then she saw it. Something on the shoulder of the road. Big. Dark. Not moving. Her first thought was deer. People hit deer all the time out here. But as her headlights got closer, the shape looked wrong. Not an animal. A person. Lying on the gravel shoulder. Completely still. Carmen's heart started pounding. Every instinct told her to keep driving. It was almost midnight. She was a woman alone on an empty highway. This could be a trap, a setup. She'd heard stories about people faking injuries to rob whoever stopped to help, but she was also a healthcare worker. She'd made a promise to herself to help people, to not look away. Carmen slowed down. Her hands shook on the steering wheel. Keep driving or stop? Safe or right? She pulled onto the shoulder, put on her hazard lights. Grabbed her phone and dialed 911, but didn't hit call yet, just in case. She got out of the car. The cold hit her like a slap. The March wind cut right through her scrubs. The person on the ground was a man. White, maybe 50 years old, wearing what looked like an expensive suit, but it was torn, covered in blood and dirt and gravel. He wasn't moving. Carmen walked closer, slowly, carefully. Sir, can you hear me? Nothing. She knelt down beside him, put her fingers against his neck to check for a pulse. There. Weak, but there. He was alive. Then she saw the injuries. His face was destroyed. Someone had beaten him. Badly. His left eye was swollen completely shut, his lips split open, blood coming from his nose and mouth. One arm bent at an angle that made Carmen's stomach turn. But the worst part was his head. Blood pulled under it, dark, spreading. Head injury. Maybe skull fracture. Definitely concussion. Possibly worse. Carmen hit call on her phone. 911, what's your emergency? I'm on Highway 94, about 15 miles north of Madison. There's a man here. He's been hurt. Badly beaten. Head injury. He's unconscious. I need an ambulance now. Ma'am, are you safe? Is the person who hurt him still there? Carmen looked around. The highway was completely empty. Dark in both directions. Just her car's hazard lights blinking red in the darkness. I don't see anyone, but he's hurt bad. He needs help immediately. Ambulance is on the way. Can you tell me if he's breathing? Carmen checked. Yes. Breathing is shallow. Pulse is weak. I'm a CNA. I work at St. Mary's Hospital. I know what I'm doing. Good. Stay with him. Don't
move him unless there's immediate danger. Help is coming. Carmen stayed on the line with the dispatcher, but while she waited, she did what she was trained to do. checked his airways, made sure he wasn't choking on blood, used her jacket to put pressure on the head wound even though it meant kneeling in gravel in the freezing cold. Talked to him, even though he couldn't hear her. You're going to be okay. Help is coming. Stay with me. Just stay with me. While she worked, she noticed other things. His watch, expensive. Rolex maybe. His shoes, custom leather. Even covered in blood and dirt, she could tell they cost more than she made in a month. This man had money. Serious money. Which made it even stranger that he was lying on the side of Highway 94 at midnight, looking like someone had tried to kill him. The ambulance arrived 12 minutes later. Sirens, lights, paramedics rushing over with equipment. They took over, asked Carmen questions. What had she found? What had she done? How long had he been unconscious? She answered everything. Professional, calm, the way she'd been trained. Then she noticed the police car pulling up behind the ambulance. 2 officers got out. One older, maybe 50, the other younger, 30 at most. The older officer walked over while the paramedics were loading the man into the ambulance. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Douglas. This is Officer Park. You're the one who called this in?" "Yes, Carmen Rodriguez. I was driving home from work and saw him on the side of the road." "Did you see what happened? Anyone else around?" "No, the highway was empty. He was just lying there." Officer Douglas looked at the ambulance, then back at Carmen. His expression changed, like he was trying to figure something out. "Can I see your ID, Miss Rodriguez?" Carmen felt her stomach drop. "Why do you need my ID? I'm the one who called for help." "Standard procedure. We need to document everyone at the scene." She handed over her driver's license with shaking hands. Officer Douglas looked at it, handed it to Officer Park. They exchanged a look Carmen couldn't read. "Miss Rodriguez, where exactly do you work?" "St. Mary's Hospital. I'm a CNA. I just got off a double shift." "Can anyone verify that?" The question hit her wrong. "What do you mean? Why would I need someone to verify where I work?" Officer Park's hand moved to his belt, near his gun. "We're not accusing you of anything. We just need to establish a timeline." The paramedics started closing the ambulance doors. Officer Douglas walked over to the ambulance quickly, said something to the paramedics, looked inside at the injured man. Then he came back looking tense, really tense. He pulled Officer Park aside. They talked in voices too low for Carmen to hear, but she saw them looking at their phones, looking at her, looking at the ambulance. Officer Douglas came back. "Miss Rodriguez, we're going to need you to come down to the station. Answer some questions." "Am I under arrest?" "No, but we need to talk to you. About the man you found." "Who is he?" Officer Douglas and Officer Park looked at each other again. "We'll discuss that at the station." Carmen's hands wouldn't stop shaking.
I stopped to help someone. That's all I did. Why are you treating me like I did something wrong? Nobody said you did anything wrong, but that man in the ambulance is someone very important, and right now, you're the only witness we have. Witness to what? I didn't see anything happen. I just found him. That's what we need to talk about. At the station. Carmen looked at the ambulance driving away, at the officer standing too close, at the empty highway where she'd stopped because someone needed help. And she realized whatever happened in the next few hours was going to change everything. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and floor cleaner. Carmen sat in a small room with gray walls and a metal table. They said it wasn't an interrogation room, but it felt like one. She'd been there for 45 minutes, alone, waiting. They told her she wasn't under arrest, but when she asked if she could leave, they said no. Not yet, just a few more minutes. That was 30 minutes ago. Carmen kept checking her phone. Her mother would be worried. She should have been home by now. But when she tried to text, an officer knocked on the door and asked her to put the phone away. Finally, the door opened. Officer Douglas came in, but he wasn't alone. With him was a woman in a dark suit. Professional, serious. She had a badge clipped to her belt. FBI. Carmen's mouth went dry. Ms. Rodriguez, this is Special Agent Morrison, FBI. She has some questions for you. FBI. Why was the FBI here? Agent Morrison sat down across from Carmen, opened a tablet, looked at her with eyes that gave nothing away. Ms. Rodriguez, the man you found on Highway 94, his name is Jonathan Whitmore. Does that name mean anything to you? Carmen shook her head. No, should it? Agent Morrison turned the tablet around, showed Carmen a photograph. It was the same man from the highway. But in this photo, he was clean, healthy, smiling, wearing an expensive suit, standing in front of a huge building with his name on it. Whitmore Pharmaceuticals. Jonathan Whitmore is the CEO of Whitmore Pharmaceuticals, Agent Morrison said. He's worth an estimated $2.3 billion. 3 days ago, he disappeared. His family reported him missing. There's been an active FBI search across 3 states. His face has been all over the news. Carmen stared at the photo. I didn't know. I don't watch the news much. I work too many hours. I just saw someone who needed help. Where were you 3 days ago? Tuesday evening. Working. At the hospital. I work doubles most days. You can check my time card. We will. Agent Morrison made notes on her tablet. Tell me exactly what happened tonight. Everything. Don't leave anything out. So Carmen told her. All of it. Driving home, seeing the shape on the road, the internal debate about whether to stop, deciding to help, finding him, calling 911, waiting with him, the ambulance. Everything. Did he say anything to you? No. He was unconscious the whole time. Did you see anyone else? Any other cars on the highway? No. It was completely empty.
Touch anything besides him? Move anything? No, I know you're not supposed to contaminate a scene. I just checked his vitals and tried to keep him stable until the paramedics arrived. Agent Morrison typed for a long time. Then she looked up at Carmen with an expression that was hard to read. Miss Rodriguez, there's something you need to understand. Jonathan Whitmore's family is one of the wealthiest in Wisconsin. They have significant political connections. This case is going to get a lot of media attention. And right now, you're the only witness we have. Witness to what? I told you I didn't see what happened. I just found him. That's the problem. His injuries are consistent with severe assault. Someone beat him, badly, then left him on the side of a highway to die. That's attempted murder. And you're the only person who can place him at that location, who can testify to his condition, who can establish a timeline. Carmen's head was spinning. I don't understand. Why would anyone try to kill him? That's what we're trying to figure out. But I need you to understand something else. Agent Morrison leaned forward. The Whitmore family is going to have a lot of questions. The media is going to have questions. You saved this man's life tonight. That makes you important. That makes you visible. And in cases like this, that can be dangerous. Dangerous how? Whoever tried to kill Jonathan Whitmore is still out there. And they might not be happy that he survived, that someone found him and saved him. The room felt too small, too cold. So what are you saying? That I'm in danger now? Because I stopped to help someone? We don't know yet, but I'm saying you need to be careful. Don't talk to the media if they contact you. Don't discuss this case with anyone. If you notice anything suspicious, anyone following you, strange phone calls, anything that feels wrong, you contact me immediately. She handed Carmen a business card. FBI seal, name, phone number. Can I go home now? Agent Morrison looked at Officer Douglas. Some silent communication passed between them. Yes, but we'll be in touch. We may have more questions as the investigation continues. They let her leave at 3:30 in the morning. Carmen walked out of the police station into the freezing March darkness. Her car was still at the hospital parking lot. They drove her here in a police car. Officer Park drove her back to get her Honda.
The ride was silent. When she finally got to her car and started driving home, Carmen's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd saved a billionaire's life, a man worth more money than she could even comprehend, a man who had been kidnapped and beaten and left to die. And now the FBI was telling her she might be in danger. Carmen pulled into the parking lot of her apartment building 20 minutes later. Cheap place, bad neighborhood, broken streetlights and cracked pavement, but it was home. She was halfway to her building when she saw it. A black sedan, parked across the street, tinted windows, engine running even though it was almost 4 in the morning. Carmen stopped walking. The sedan didn't move, just sat there, idling. Someone was inside, watching. Carmen's heart hammered against her ribs. She thought about the FBI agent's warning, about whoever had tried to kill Jonathan Whitmore.
Jonathan Whitmore still being out there. She walked faster, almost running, got inside her building, locked the door behind her, ran up the stairs to her apartment, locked that door too, put the chain on, went to the window and looked down at the street. The black sedan was still there, still running, still watching. Gottman backed away from the window, grabbed her phone, pulled out Agent Morrison's card. But before she could call, her phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. She opened it. 7 words that made her blood run cold. You should have kept driving, Gottman. Gottman didn't sleep. She sat on her couch in the dark with all the lights off, watching the window, watching the street below. The black sedan stayed until 6 in the morning. Then it drove away. But the text message stayed on her phone. You should have kept driving, Gottman. They knew her name. They knew where she lived. They'd been watching her. Gottman wanted to call the FBI, wanted to call Agent Morrison and tell her about the sedan and the text. But what would you say? Someone sent me a message? Someone parked outside my building? It wasn't enough. Not yet. At 7 a.m., her phone started ringing. Unknown number. She didn't answer. It rang again. Different number. Again. 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 By 7:30, she'd received 16 calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Then, the text messages started. This is Jennifer Walsh with Channel 6 News. We'd love to interview you about saving Jonathan Whitmore. Please call me back at this number. CBS News wants to tell your story. Exclusive interview. We can offer compensation. ABC is prepared to offer $50,000 for an exclusive sit-down interview about the night you saved billionaire Jonathan Whitmore. Gottman stared at her phone. How did they get her number? How did they know her name? She turned on the TV. Flipped to the local news. Every channel was covering the same story. Breaking news! Billionaire CEO Jonathan Whitmore found beaten and left for dead on Highway 94. Sources confirm Whitmore was the victim of a kidnapping. FBI investigating attempted murder. The Good Samaritan who saved Whitmore's life has been identified. Gottman's stomach dropped. The news anchor looked directly at the camera. The woman who found Jonathan Whitmore and called for help has been identified as Carmen Rodriguez, a certified nursing assistant at St. Mary's Hospital in Madison. Her photo filled the screen. Her actual photo. From her hospital ID badge. Her name, her job, her workplace, all of it on the news. Rodriguez, who just finished a double shift, reportedly stopped when she saw Whitmore on the side of the highway. Sources say her quick action and medical training saved his life. Carmen knew they'd be back. She called St. Mary's Hospital, asked for her supervisor, Linda. Carmen, Linda's voice was strained. I was just about to call you. I need to take a few days off. Personal emergency. Carmen, about that. I need to talk to you about something. The hospital administration has made a request. What kind of request? They're asking that you not come into work for a little while, until this situation calms down. Carmen felt cold. What situation? The Whitmore situation. There are reporters in our parking lot. They've been approaching staff members, asking questions about you, trying to get into the building. It's causing disruption. The administration thinks it's best if you stay home for a few days, with pay, of course, just until the media attention dies down. So I'm being punished for saving someone's life? It's not punishment, Carmen. It's punishment. Carmen's voice was flat. I did the right thing, and now I can't come to work. I'm sorry. It's only temporary, a week at most. Carmen hung up. She sat in her apartment with the curtains closed, phone off, TV off, sitting in the silence. She'd stopped to help someone. That was all. That was the only thing she'd done. And now her life was falling apart. At noon, someone knocked on her door again. Carmen looked through the peephole, ready to ignore more reporters. But these weren't reporters. Two men in expensive suits. Dark, professional. They looked like lawyers. One of them held up a business card to the peephole so she could read it. Robert Caldwell, attorney at law. Carmen opened the door, but kept the chain on. Who are you? Miss Rodriguez, my name is Robert Caldwell. I'm an attorney representing the Whitmore family. They asked me to contact you. I don't want to do any interviews. This isn't about interviews. The family would very much like to meet with you personally, to thank you for saving Jonathan's life. I don't need to be thanked. I just want to be left alone. I understand. But, Ms. Rodriguez, the family is aware of the media attention you're receiving. They want to help. They have resources, security, legal representation, media management. They can protect your privacy, help you navigate this. I don't want their money. Robert Caldwell smiled slightly. This isn't about money, though the family's prepared to show their gratitude financially if you allow it. This is about making sure you're safe. Safe from what? His smile faded. From whoever tried to kill Jonathan. The FBI hasn't told you everything, Ms. Rodriguez. Carmen's hands tightened on the doorframe. What haven't they told me? Jonathan Whitmore wasn't just beaten and dumped on that highway. He was kidnapped, held for 3 days, tortured. Someone wanted him dead, and that person is still out there. What does that have to do with me? Everything. Robert's voice was serious now. Your name is all over the news, your face, where you work, where you live. The person who tried to kill Jonathan knows you're the one who saved him, knows you're a witness, knows you can testify about his condition, his injuries, the timeline. Carmen felt the fear she'd been pushing down all morning rise up in her throat. The black sedan, the text message. They'd found.
Really? From the Whitmore family? She asked. How do I know you're not the people who tried to kill him? Robert pulled out his phone, made a call, held it out to Carmen. Miss Rodriguez, a man's voice, weak, rough, but conscious. This is Jonathan Whitmore. I'm told you're the woman who saved my life. I'd very much like to meet you, to thank you personally, and to make sure you're protected. Please, will you come? Carmen's mind raced. FBI warnings, threatening texts, black sedans, reporters camped outside, her job suspended, her privacy destroyed. All because she stopped on a highway. Okay, she said quietly. I'll meet with you. Robert Caldwell nodded. I'll have a car here in 30 minutes. Pack a bag. You shouldn't stay here tonight. It's not safe. Where am I going? Somewhere the people who hurt Jonathan can't find you. After he left, Carmen stood in her apartment looking at the life she'd built. Small, simple, safe. All of it was gone now. Because she'd made one choice on a dark highway. She packed the bag with shaking hands, and as she zipped it closed, she looked at her phone one more time. 3 new text messages, all from unknown numbers. She opened the first one. Leaving won't save you. The second one. We know where your mother lives too. The third one made her blood turn to ice. A photograph of her mother's house, taken from across the street, today. Carmen grabbed her phone and dialed Agent Morrison's number with trembling fingers. This wasn't just about her anymore. The car that picked up Carmen wasn't what she expected. Not a limousine, not flashy. Just a black SUV with tinted windows and 2 men in the front seat who didn't talk much. Professional security. Robert Caldwell had called them protection detail. They drove for an hour, out of Madison, through small towns, past farms and frozen fields. Finally, they turned onto a private road. A gate opened automatically. Trees lined both sides of the drive. Then Carmen saw the house. It wasn't a house. It was an estate. Massive stone structure overlooking Lake Geneva. Columns, balconies, wings extending in both directions. More windows than Carmen could count. This was where billionaires lived. The SUV pulled up to the front entrance. One of the security men opened Carmen's door. Miss Rodriguez, they're waiting for you inside. Carmen got out with her small bag. She felt ridiculous. Underdressed. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. These people probably had staff who dressed better than she did. The front door opens before she reached it. A woman stood there, maybe mid-60s, blonde hair styled perfectly, wearing clothes that cost more than Carmen's car. Ice blue eyes that looked at Carmen like she was evaluating her. Miss Rodriguez, I'm Victoria Whitmore, Jonathan's wife. Thank you for coming. Her voice was polite, professional, cold. Carmen recognized that tone. It was the voice people use when they were being correct, but not warm. When they were following social rules, but didn't really want to. How is your husband? Carmen asked. Recovering. The doctors say he'll make a full recovery, thanks to you. She didn't say thank you. Not directly.
Okay, Carmen said. He wants to meet you. He's been asking for you since he regained consciousness. If you're comfortable with that. Carmen nodded. Victoria led her through the house. Every room was more expensive than the last. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, paintings that looked like they belonged in museums, furniture that was probably older than Carmen's entire family. This was the world billionaires lived in. They stopped at a door at the end of a long hallway. Victoria knocked softly. Jonathan, Miss Rodriguez is here. Send her in. The voice was rough, tired, but conscious. Victoria opened the door. I'll give you privacy. She left, and Carmen walked into the room alone. Jonathan Whitmore was sitting up in bed. His face was still a mess, swollen, bruised. Bandages covered his head. His left arm was in a cast, but he was alive, conscious. His eyes locked onto Carmen as she entered. You're her. You're the one who found me. Yes, sir. Don't call me sir. You saved my life. Call me Jonathan. He tried to smile but winced. Still hurts to do that. You should rest. I've been resting for 3 days. What I want is to thank you. He gestured to a chair beside the bed. Please sit. Carmen sat. Up close, she could see the extent of his injuries. The dark bruises, the split lip, the swelling that made one eye barely open. Someone had tried to kill this man. Do you remember anything about what happened? Jonathan's expression darkened. Some, not all of it. I was leaving my office Tuesday evening, late. Almost everyone had gone home. 3 men were waiting in the parking garage. They had guns, forced me into a van. He paused, took a slow breath. They drugged me. I don't remember the drive. When I woke up, I was in a basement. Concrete floor,
no windows. They kept me there for 3 days. What did they want? Information about my company, about finances, codes, passwords. They kept asking about accounts I didn't recognize, money I didn't know about. His voice got quieter. When I couldn't give them what they wanted, they hurt me. Carmen felt sick. Then last night, Wednesday night, something changed. They got angry, frustrated. One of them beat me. Bad. I thought I was going to die. He looked at me directly. Then they threw me in a car, drove for a while, pulled over on a highway, dragged me out, and dumped me on the side of the road. They just left you there. They thought I was dead or dying. I heard one of them say, "He won't last an hour." Jonathan's voice cracked. He remembered lying on the gravel, cold, everything hurting, thinking, this is it. This is how it ends, on the side of a highway like garbage. He reached for a glass of water. His hand shook. Then I heard a voice. Your voice. You were talking to me, telling me to hold on, that helpless coming. I couldn't respond, couldn't open my eyes, but I heard you, and I held on. Carmen felt tears sting her eyes. I'm glad I stopped. Most people wouldn't have. Late at night, empty highway. They would have assumed I was drunk or homeless, not worth the risk. He studied her face. Why did you stop? Because someone needed help. It's more than that. You're a CNA. You work at St. Mary's. You just finished the double shift. You must have been exhausted. You could have justified driving past, told yourself someone else would help, called 911 anonymously. But you stopped. You got out of your car. You helped a stranger. That's what we're supposed to do. Jonathan smiled, winced again. You'd think, but in my experience, very few people actually do it. A knock at the door. Victoria entered carrying a tray with tea. She set it down without a word and left again. Jonathan poured tea with his good hand. I'm not a hero. I'm a CNA who stopped to help. You're being harassed by reporters. You were suspended from work. You're getting threatening messages. He saw her face change. Yes, I know about the messages. My security team has been monitoring the situation. You got 3 texts this morning, including a photo of your mother's house. Carmen's voice came out sharp. You're having me watched? I'm having you protected. There's a difference. The people who did this to me are still out there. They know you saved me. They know you can testify about my injuries. You're in danger because of me. I didn't ask for this. I know. That's why I'm offering help. Real help. He set down his teacup. My family wants to ensure your safety. We'll provide security, legal representation, media management, whatever you need. I don't want your money. Everyone says that. His voice wasn't unkind. But money is what makes you safe right now. Money is what keeps security guards outside your mother's house. Money is what gets you lawyers who can stop reporters from harassing you. Like it or not, money is protection. Carmen stood up. I don't want to be protected. I just want my normal life back. That's not possible anymore. Victoria's voice. She'd come back into the room. You're part of this now, Miss Rodriguez, whether you want to be or not. Jonathan shot his wife a look. What Victoria means is that the media attention won't disappear overnight, but we can help you manage it. I can manage my own life. Can you? Jonathan asked quietly. Can you manage the reporters camped outside your building, the threatening texts, the black sedans following you, the fact that whoever kidnapped me knows your name and your mother's address? Carmen felt trapped. There's something else, Jonathan said. Something the FBI hasn't told you yet. Something you deserve to know. Victoria stepped forward. Jonathan, don't. She deserves the truth, Victoria. He looked at Carmen. The men who kidnapped me, we know who sent them. Carmen's heart hammered. Who? My business partner, Preston Cole. We've been partners for 20 years, built Whitmore Pharmaceuticals together from nothing. He's been like a brother to me. Why would your partner want you dead? Jonathan's face went hard. Because I discovered he's been embezzling millions from the company, cooking the books, stealing from our research budget. When I confronted him last month, he begged me not to go to the authorities, said he'd pay it back. I gave him 2 weeks. He paused. Instead of paying it back, he hired people to kill me. The FBI has evidence, phone records, money transfers. They're moving to arrest him today, right now. Carmen felt the room tilt. So this wasn't random. Someone you trusted tried to murder you over money. Over pride.
Face consequences for what he'd done. Over being willing to kill rather than admit he was wrong. Victoria spoke from the doorway. Her voice was cold. Which is why we need to protect you, Ms. Rodriguez. Preston Cole is about to be arrested. When that happens, this story becomes even bigger. You become even more visible, even more important as a witness, even more of a target. Carmen looked between them, the billionaire in the hospital bed, his ice-cold wife, the mansion around her, the world of wealth and power and people who solve problems with money. I need to think, she said. Of course, Jonathan gestured to the door. Robert will show you to a guest room. You'll be safe here tonight. No reporters, no threats, just safety. As Carmen turned to leave, Jonathan called out, Carmen, thank you for not driving past me, for seeing me as a human being who needed help, not a billionaire or a stranger or a problem. You saw me. That's more than most people would have done. Carmen left the room. Robert Caldwell was waiting in the hallway. I'll show you to your room. He led her through more hallways, more wealth, finally stopped at a door. This is yours for as long as you need it. There's security on the grounds. You're safe here. He left. Carmen went inside. The guest room was bigger than her entire apartment. King bed, fireplace, windows overlooking the lake. She sat on the bed and pulled out her phone. Turned it on for the first time in hours. 53 missed calls, 82 text messages. She scrolled through them. Reporters, unknown numbers, more threats. Then one message that made her freeze. From Agent Morrison, FBI. Preston Cole has been arrested. Press conference in 1 hour. Your name will be mentioned. Prepare yourself. This is about to get much worse. Carmen looked out the window at the lake, at the grounds, at the walls and gates and security that separated this world from hers. She'd stopped on a highway to help someone, and now she was trapped in a billionaire. The reporters came back. More of them this time. They camped outside her apartment building like vultures. They followed her when she tried to go to the grocery store. They shouted questions at her through her locked door. Her phone became useless, a constant stream of calls and texts from news outlets offering money, fame, a chance to tell her story. She felt like an animal in a zoo. Then, on the second day, a call came from her supervisor at St. Mary's Hospital. Carmen, can you come into a meeting this afternoon? The hospital administrator wants to speak with you. Carmen's heart sank. They were going to fire her. She was too much of a distraction, too much of a liability. She walked into that meeting expecting the worst. Instead, the hospital administrator, a man she'd only ever seen from a distance, stood up and shook her hand. Ms. Rodriguez, on behalf of St. Mary's, I want to apologize for placing you on leave. That was a mistake. We've been in communication with Mr. Whitmore. He's made it clear he was not happy with our decision. Carmen didn't know what to say. We'd like to offer you your job back, the administrator continued, and a promotion. The floor supervisor position on the cardiac wing is open. We think you'd be a perfect fit. It comes with a 20% raise and full benefits.
Promise. Use this power not just to reinstate her, but to give her a better life. She accepted the promotion, started work the next week. But even with the new job and the higher pay, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had been hijacked, that she was no longer in control of her own story. A week later, a package arrived at her apartment, delivered by a private courier. It was from Jonathan Whitmore. Inside was a letter and a check. The letter was handwritten, the writing of someone who was still recovering. Carmen, I know you said you didn't want money, but please understand, this isn't a payment. This isn't charity. This is an acknowledgement of a debt I can never repay. You gave me my life back. You gave my family their husband and father. You gave my employees their company. This check is for $500,000. I know that's an absurd amount of money, but it's a fraction of what your actions were worth. Use it however you want. Pay off your debts. Help your mother. Donate it to charity. Burn it in your fireplace. It's yours. No strings attached. But more than the money, I want you to know something. You changed me. I've been a wealthy man my entire adult life. I've had people bow and scrape and tell me how important I am. But when I was lying on that highway, dying, none of that mattered. My money couldn't help me. My power couldn't save me. Only another person willing to stop could do that. And you stopped. You didn't know who I was. You didn't know if I could ever repay you. You just saw another human being who needed help. And you helped. That's who you are, Carmen. And that's more valuable than any amount of money in the world. Thank you, Jonathan. Carmen stared at the check. $500,000. $500,000! She thought about her mother's medical bills, her own student loans from the CNA program, the mountain of debt that had been hanging over her family for years. This check could wipe it all away. She could buy a small house, a new car that didn't make strange noises. She could take care of her mother for the rest of her life. She could finally breathe. Then she thought about her co-workers at the hospital. Maria, who worked 3 jobs and still couldn't afford her daughter's asthma medication. David, who was taking care of his sick wife and working doubles just to keep up with the medical bills. All the other CNAs, the janitors, the kitchen staff, the people who did the hardest work for the least pay, the people who saved lives every day in small, quiet ways and got no recognition, no media attention, no billionaires writing them checks. And she made a decision. The next day, Carmen went to the bank. She cashed the check. She opened a new account for herself and put $50,000 in it. Enough to pay off her mother's bills, enough to clear her own debt, enough to finally be stable. The rest, $450,000, she put into a cashier's check. She walked back to St. Mary's Hospital, not as an employee, but as a donor. She met with the hospital administrator and established the fund, the Healthcare Heroes Fund, for hospital support staff, CNAs, janitors, kitchen workers, transport staff who were facing financial hardship. When Jonathan Whitmore found out what she'd done, he called her. "You gave it away?" "Most of it." "Why?" "Because I don't need $500,000, Carmen says simply. But there are a lot of people who need help. People who work just as hard as I do, who save lives every day without anyone noticing. I just wanted them to be seen too." Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. "You're a remarkable woman, Carmen Rodriguez." "I'm normal," Carmen said. "That's the point. What I did, stopping to help someone on the side of the road, that should be normal, not remarkable. Not worth $500,000, just normal human decency." "But it's not normal anymore," Jonathan said quietly, "and that's the problem. Then maybe that's what needs to change." 2 months passed. The media attention finally died down. Preston Cole was awaiting trial. Jonathan Whitmore returned to work, a changed man. Carmen's life found a new normal. A better normal. She was a floor supervisor now, respected, financially stable for the first time in her life. The black sedans were gone. The threatening texts had stopped. She thought it was over. But one night in May,
She was watching the local news while eating dinner. They were covering the upcoming trial of Preston Cole. Sources inside the investigation say this case may be about more than just embezzlement, the news anchor said. There are rumors of a much wider conspiracy, one that could have national implications. The reporter at the courthouse came on screen. That's right, Tom. The prosecution is expected to introduce evidence suggesting the money Preston Cole was stealing from Whitmore Pharmaceuticals wasn't just for personal enrichment. We're hearing it may have been used to fund the massive corporate bribery scheme, potentially involving government officials. Carmen set down her fork. Bribery. Government officials. This was bigger than she thought. She had saved Jonathan Whitmore. But what had she really saved him from? And what else did Preston Cole know that made murdering his partner of 20 years seem like the only way out? Carmen's new normal was quiet. She went to work, supervised her floor, came home, took care of her mother, paid her bills on time for the first time in her adult life. She tried not to think about Jonathan Whitmore or Preston Cole or the trial that was about to start. She'd done her part. She testified to the grand jury. She just wanted to be left alone. Then, one evening, Jonathan Whitmore called her. "Carmen, it's Jonathan. I need to talk to you before the trial starts." "Is everything okay?" "Yes, but there's more to the story. Things I didn't tell you before. Things you deserve to know now." They met for coffee the next day, in a private room at a quiet hotel where no one would see them. Jonathan looked better. The bruises were gone. He still had scars, but he looked healthier, stronger. Preston's trial starts next week. The prosecution is confident they'll get a conviction, but his lawyers are trying a new strategy. What strategy? They're going to argue that I wasn't the victim, that I was the one committing the crimes, that Preston found out and I tried to frame him. They're going to say my injuries were self-inflicted.
Did Whitmore pay you for your testimony? Jonathan had provided a security detail, 2 large men in suits who cleared a path for her through the crowd. But even with their protection, Carmen felt exposed, stripped bare for public consumption. She sat in a small waiting room outside the courtroom, hands shaking, reviewing the facts of that night for the 100th time. The time on her dashboard clock, the color of the man's shoe, the angle of his broken arm. Then the door opened. "Ms. Rodriguez, we're ready for you." She walked into the courtroom. It was packed, every seat filled. In the front row, she saw Jonathan and Victoria Whitmore. Jonathan gave her a small, encouraging nod. And then she saw Preston Cole. He sat at the defense table next to his lawyers. Expensive suit, perfect hair. He didn't look like a man accused of attempted murder. He looked like he was about to close a business deal. He turned his head and looked at Carmen as she walked to the witness stand. His eyes were cold, empty. He looked at her with a kind of mild contempt, like she was an insect he'd found on his shoe. Carmen took the oath, sat down. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The prosecutor, a woman named Miss Davies, began. Her questions were simple, direct. "Miss Rodriguez, where were you on the night of March 12th? "I was driving home from my job at St. Mary's Hospital." "And what did you see?" "I saw a man lying on the side of Highway 94. Carmen recounted the story. The way she'd stopped, the injuries she'd found, the call to 911. Her voice was steady. She was a healthcare professional. She knew how to report facts. "Why did you stop, Miss Rodriguez?" the prosecutor asked. "Because he needed help." "Were you afraid?" "Yes." "Then why didn't you keep driving?" Carmen looked at the jury. "Because I couldn't live with myself if I had." The prosecutor finished. Then the defense attorney stood up. He was older with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Miss Rodriguez," he began,
You work as a certified nursing assistant, is that correct? Yes. And what is your approximate annual salary? Objection, Ms. Davies said. Irrelevant. It goes to motive, Your Honor, the defense attorney said smoothly. I'll connect it. Overruled. The witness will answer. I make about $32,000 a year. $32,000. The attorney let the number hand in the air. And is it true that a week after you found Mr. Whitmore, he gave you a check for $500,000? Yes. $500,000 for a woman who makes $32,000 a year. That's quite a windfall, isn't it? I didn't ask for it. But you took it. You cashed that check. Yes. And is it also true that Mr. Whitmore had you promoted at your job to floor supervisor with a significant raise? Yes. So you find a dying billionaire on the side of the road, and suddenly you have $500,000 and the new promotion. That seems very convenient, doesn't it? I gave most of that money away, Carmen said, her voice rising slightly. I established a fund for other healthcare workers at my hospital, people who work just as hard as I do and get nothing. The attorney waved his hand dismissively. A noble gesture, but you still kept $50,000 for yourself, didn't you? More than you make an entire year. I paid off my mother's medical bills. Of course. Tell me, Miss Rodriguez, did you know who Mr. Whitmore was before you found him on the...
Jonathan Whitmore was that night. No. You'd never seen his face on the news? Never heard of Whitmore Pharmaceuticals? No. I work 16-hour shifts. I don't have time to watch the news. So you expect this jury to believe that you, a woman deep in debt, just happened to stumble upon a dying billionaire, and that all the money and promotions that followed were just coincidence? It wasn't a coincidence. It was a man on the side of a road who was bleeding to death. I stopped to help him. That's the truth. The attorney leaned closer. Would you have stopped if he was homeless, Ms. Rodriguez? Would you have pulled over for some man in dirty clothes with no Rolex on his wrist? Carmen met his gaze without flinching. I would have stopped if he was homeless. I would have stopped if he was the president. I would have stopped if he was you. Because when someone is dying on the side of a road, you don't check their bank account before you call for help. A murmur went through the courtroom. The attorney's smile faltered. He tried a different tactic. Tell us about Mr. Whitmore's injuries. You're not a doctor, are you? I'm a CNA. I know how to assess a patient's condition. And in your assessment, was he really dying? He had a severe head wound. His pulse was weak and thready. His breathing was shallow. He was hypothermic. His arm was broken in 2 places, and he was unconscious. Carmen's voice was firm now. Clinical. This was her area of expertise. In my professional assessment, he had less than an hour to live. If I'd been 10 minutes later, he would have been dead. What happened to him wasn't an accident, and it wasn't self-inflicted. It was attempted murder. The jury looked from Carmen to Preston Cole. Cole wouldn't meet their eyes. The defense attorney had no more questions. Carmen was dismissed from the stand. As she walked back to her seat, Jonathan Whitmore looked at her. He didn't smile. He just mouthed 2 words. Thank you. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They came back with a verdict just before the courthouse closed for the day. On the charge of kidnapping, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy, guilty. On the charge of attempted murder, guilty. Preston Cole was sentenced to 35 years to life in federal prison. Outside the courthouse, the reporters were waiting. Carmen didn't stop to talk, but one reporter shouted a question that she felt she had to answer. Ms. Rodriguez, how does it feel to be a hero? Carmen stopped, turned to the cameras. I'm not a hero. I just did what anyone should do. I hope we can all remember to stop for each other. That's all that matters. She walked away through the crowd, back to her car, back to her normal life,
or what was left of it. As she was getting in her car, someone called her name. It was Jonathan. He'd waited for her. "Carmen, can I talk to you for a minute?" "I think we've said everything we need to say. I have one more thing to ask you, and you can absolutely say no." They stood in the emptying courthouse parking lot. The sun was setting. The media circus was gone, chasing the next story. "What do you want to ask me?" Carmen said. Jonathan looked tired, but for the first time since she'd met him,
He also looked at peace. "I'm establishing a foundation," he said, "with some of my personal funds. It's going to provide scholarships and financial assistance to healthcare support staff, CNAs, medical assistants, transport workers, the people who do the hardest work for the least pay. I want to name it the Carmen Rodriguez Foundation, in your honor." Carmen shook her head immediately. "No. No? I appreciate the thought. I really do. But you can't name it after me, because this isn't about me. It was never about me." "Then what is it about?" "It's about all the other Carmens, all the healthcare workers who stop every single day, who hold hands and clean wounds and save lives in quiet ways and get no recognition, who go home exhausted to their own families and their own bills and their own struggles. They're the heroes, not me." She looked at him. "Name it the Healthcare Heroes Fund, or something like that. Make it about them, all of them, not just one person who happened to find a billionaire on the side of the road." Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. A real smile this time. No wincing. "You're right. Of course you're right." 2 months later, Whitmore Pharmaceuticals announced the establishment of the $50 million Healthcare Heroes Fund. It would provide scholarships for CNAs to become nurses, grants for workers facing medical debt, and support for families of healthcare staff who were struggling. Jonathan asked Carmen to serve on the board, to help guide the fund's mission with her experience. She accepted, but only on a part-time basis. "I'm still a floor supervisor at St. Mary's," she told him. "That's who I am. I'm a healthcare worker. I can't forget where I came from." Over the next 6 months, the fund made an impact. It helped over 500 healthcare workers in Wisconsin, paid off the medical debt for 200 families, sent 50 CNAs to nursing school. The story got national attention, not as a crime story anymore, but as a story about giving back, about corporate responsibility, about valuing the people who keep our society running. Other hospitals started looking at their pay scales. Other companies started talking about how they treated their support staff. A national conversation began about the invisible workers who hold everything together. Carmen and Jonathan became unlikely friends. They met for coffee once a quarter, talked about the fund, about their lives. He told her about his daughter who'd finally started talking to him again after hearing about the foundation. She told him about her mother, whose health had improved now that she wasn't worried about bills. They were two people from different worlds, brought together by a single moment on a dark highway. He had learned from her that humanity wasn't about wealth. It was about seeing people, about stopping when everyone else drove past. She had learned from him that power and privilege could be used for good, but only if you never forgot where you came from. One afternoon, sitting in that same quiet coffee shop, Carmen asked him a question that had been bothering her for months. "That night on the highway, before I found you, the police said you'd been there for at least 30 minutes. "That's what they told me." "How many cars do you think drove past you?" Jonathan looked down at his coffee. "Dozens, probably. Maybe more. People see something on the side of the road. They don't want to get involved. It's easier to look away. Pretend you didn't see." "Why did I stop?" Gutterman asked, more to herself than to him. "I almost didn't. I was scared. I was tired. I could have just kept driving." "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." She thought about it for a long moment. "I think I stopped because I couldn't live with myself if I found out later that someone had died and I could have done something. It wasn't about being a hero. It was just about not wanting to be a person who looks away." Preston Cole gave an interview from prison a year after his conviction. He said he had no regrets, that Jonathan had gotten what he deserved, that in the world of business,
You did what you had to do to win. When a reporter asked Jonathan for his response, he just said, "That's the difference between us. Some people think being rich means being above consequences, above humanity. And some people learn that the only thing that really matters is how you treat other people." The last scene of Garmin's story didn't happen in a courtroom or a boardroom. It happened on a rainy Tuesday night, driving home from another long shift. She saw a car on the shoulder of a quiet road, broken down, an elderly man standing beside it, looking helpless. It was late. She was tired. She could just call a tow truck for him. Someone else could handle it. But she pulled over, rolled down her window. "Need some help?" The man's face flooded with relief. "Thank you for stopping. So many people just drove right past." Garmin smiled. "That's what we're supposed to do," she said. "Stop for each other." She'd stop for a stranger who turned out to be a billionaire. Tonight, she'd stop for a stranger who was probably just a regular person. Both times she'd made the same choice. Because heroism isn't about who you save, it's about who you are. It's about refusing to drive past people who need help. It's about seeing other people, really seeing them, as human, as worthy of compassion, as deserving of someone willing to stop. In a world that teaches us to look away, stopping is the most important thing we can do. Garmin stared at him. Self-inflicted? You had a fractured skull, a broken arm. You were bleeding to death on the side of a highway. Nobody does that to themselves. They're going to say it was for insurance money, or to create a distraction while I destroyed evidence. They're going to paint me as the villain. But you have evidence against him. Phone records, money transfers. We do. But they're going to try to discredit it. Discredit me. Discredit everyone involved. He leaned forward. They're going to try to discredit you, Carmen. Me? I just found you. Exactly. You're the only person who can testify to my condition that night, before the paramedics arrived, before anyone else saw me. You're the one who can tell the jury that I was dying, that this wasn't some kind of act. Garmin felt cold. So, I have to testify? The prosecution is
Going to subpoena you, yes. I don't want to. I just want my life back. I know, and I'm sorry, but you're part of this now, and there's more you need to know. Jonathan took a deep breath. This wasn't just about embezzlement. Preston wasn't just stealing money to live a lavish lifestyle. He was using that money to bribe FDA officials, to fast-track approval for a new drug, a drug that we knew had dangerous side effects. Carmen's head was spinning. What kind of side effects? Increased risk of heart failure, blood clots. We saw it in the early trials. I shut down the research, told Preston we couldn't move forward until we understood the risks. He went behind my back, pushed it through anyway. He was going to sell a drug that could kill people? For $1 billion payday, yes. When I found out what he'd done, I told him I was going to expose everything. The bribery, the faked trial data, the cover-up. I was going to the authorities the next day. Carmen finally understood. So he had you kidnapped to stop you from talking. He needed me out of the way, permanently. Carmen thought about the night on the highway, about stopping her car, about her jacket covered in blood. I didn't just save a man, she said quietly. I saved a witness. You saved hundreds of people who would have taken that drug and died from it, Jonathan corrected. You saved my company from being destroyed by corruption. You saved more than you'll ever know. The weight of it felt suffocating. I don't want to testify, she said again. I can't. They'll twist everything. They'll make me look like I was part of it, like you paid me off. They'll try, but you just have to tell the truth. That's all. The truth got me threatening texts and reporters outside my apartment. The truth got my mother threatened. The truth is dangerous. Jonathan was quiet for a long time. I know, but sometimes the truth is the only thing we have. That afternoon, Carmen got the call from Agent Morrison at the FBI. We need you to testify, Miss Rodriguez. I know, Jonathan told me. His lawyers are trying to paint you as a co-conspirator, that he paid you to find him and corroborate his story. That's insane.
It is, but they're good lawyers, and you're a CNA who suddenly has a lot of money and a new promotion. They're going to make that look suspicious. I donated most of that money. It doesn't matter. They'll use whatever they can to create doubt. Agent Morrison's voice softened. I know you don't want to do this. You've been through enough. But Carmen, your testimony isn't just for Jonathan. It's for the other people pressing hurt. The families of the people who died in the early drug trials. The employees he fired to cover his tracks. The other companies he ruined. 14 other people have come forward since his arrest. Your testimony could be the piece that ensures he faces justice for all of them. Carmen closed her eyes. She just wanted her life back. Her quiet, simple, normal life. But that life was gone. Had been gone since she pulled over on Highway 94. She'd made a choice that night. To help. To not look away. And now she had to see it through. Okay, she said quietly. I'll testify. Thank you, Carmen. You're doing the right thing. The trial date was set for 3 weeks later. Carmen spent those weeks meeting with prosecutors, going over her testimony, trying to prepare herself for what was coming. She started getting strange phone calls again, hang-ups, heavy breathing. The black sedan reappeared outside her apartment building, just for an hour, then gone. A warning. On the night before she was scheduled to testify, a package was left at her door. No return address. Inside was a single dead bird and a note. You should have kept driving. Now you'll wish